Hi, I'm Deidre Paknad, CEO and co-founder of Workboard. Over the course of my career, I've led teams large and small to great achievement, and I've learned a thing or two about setting and achieving goals, much of which has been baked into the Workboard app. In this webinar, we'll look at why goals matter, some tips on how to set and achieve goals, and then how Workboard can help. At the simplest level, goals are tools. They're powerful tools for managers and leaders to help their teams achieve great success. It turns out that people and companies with goals are far more successful than those without. Companies experience a 28% higher same-year operating margin. This is a huge advantage over competitors in the market. In fact, it's a 3x advantage. It's pretty hard to get that kind of advantage any other way. At the most fundamental level, the manager's job is to continuously align the team and the team's efforts to the goals of the organization. That means defining and communicating those goals, triaging priorities to sustain alignment to goal, getting the right work done, reporting progress up through the organization, and providing feedback to the people who do the work. But it turns out companies fail to achieve strategic goals 70% of the time. And a lot of that breakdown comes down to how managers spend their time and how effective they are at communicating what the goal is and aligning the team in the effort to its achievement. And it's kind of a recursive problem. So if you don't have enough time or don't have the right mechanisms to communicate the goal, the teams don't know what they're working on, and you find yourself triaging most of the time. And because the company's missing goal most of the time, there's more and more layers of reporting progress, which consumes even more of your time. And so as a manager, you end up with less and less time to communicate the goal and help the team do the right work. And it just circles in on itself. And of course, at the tail end of the year, when it's time to provide feedback, everybody's unsatisfied with the quality and the value of the feedback relative to the goals of the organization. It's a simple truth that your team can't achieve a goal it doesn't know about. Gallup, Deloitte, McKinsey, and many others report that, in fact, most people don't understand the goals of the organization and what they need to do to achieve it. Just 7% of employees say they have clarity on that. At the same time, 76% of employees say they use a to-do list to keep track of what they're going to do. And you have to wonder how misaligned that list is with the goals of the organization, given how few actually understand them. And when it comes to getting the right work done, only 13% of employees, according to Gallup, say that they're really engaged and motivated to do that work. And that's not surprising because without understanding the goal, it's hard to know the purpose or the meaning of that work. And it's hard to do the right things and get any satisfaction from it. And of course, managers spend an extraordinary amount of time reporting progress upline, which reduces their ability to make those goals real and tangible to the people on their team. And no one thinks the review at the end of the year associated work or valued work that was unrelated to the goal in the first place. And it's not that managers are bad or incompetent. It's that it's hard on a team and in an organization that's complex, spans multiple time zones, is moving quickly. It's difficult to communicate the goals consistently, to keep them relevant consistently, to get the kind of transparency that would help you triage and align priorities consistently, and to give feedback on the work consistently. Those things take time and capacity that most managers just don't have. Goals are important, and they're strategic in so many ways. Clearly, your performance improves, but to bring it down to the next level, day-to-day decision-making is enhanced when the goal is clear. It tells people what's on the horizon. It helps them keep their eyes on the prize. And the myriad of choices that come up day in, day out are easier to make when the goal is clear. Not only are decisions easier to make, but achieving goal enhances career satisfaction and personal satisfaction in a very real way. And we all know that when we're more satisfied with what we're doing, it's rejuvenating and invigorating, and it helps us go climb the next mountain. But you have to set goals to achieve them. And the number of options and methodologies for goals is like alphabet soup. There's SMART and MBOs and OKRs and KPIs, or as I like to say, LMNOP. So does the methodology you choose to manage goals actually matter? Does it make a difference? And the answer is no. It doesn't matter which method you use. You don't need to be a disciple of a particular goal discipline. You need to be a disciple of sharing the mission and measuring progress. But let's look at some of the values or benefits each of the different goals methodologies has to offer. SMART goals have slightly different variations of meaning depending on which you look up, but fundamentally they mean goals that are specific, so well defined, that are measurable, can be quantified, they're actionable, people know what to do, they're relevant, they matter, or they have meaning to a person in the ordinary course of their business, and so on. And rather than being a methodology that is prescriptive, SMART is more of a guideline for what you should keep in mind as you develop your goals and metrics. MBOs, the old classic, means management by objective. And that's a practice of setting objectives at the end of a period, the end of a quarter or a year, and then managing and measuring performance against those objectives. And very often, compensation is tied to performance against those objectives. And there's a tight linkage between assessment and the objectives in principle, but often not in practice. OKRs stands for Objectives and Key Results. The OKR methodology looks at setting an objective or a goal that is aspirational and inspirational, and then defining what the key results or key metrics of success are in achieving that objective. In the OKR methodology, the intent is not so much to make a slam dunk on achievement, but rather to set a real stretch goal that inspires the team to reach hard and maybe not make the objective so that the organization's overall performance improves and accelerates at a great rate. OKRs are a very popular methodology in Silicon Valley in both large companies like Google and many, many small startups. The KRs in OKRs, the key results and metrics, are very similar to KPIs, or key performance indicators, that are also traditional and common. Key performance indicators define what the targets for performance or contribution are in each functional area. KPIs often lack a larger mission statement and purpose statement, and they're very reductive to measurement only. Nonetheless, the measurement can be very valuable. When you think about putting your goals together and metrics and communicating them, there are a couple things to think about regardless of the method that you carry forward. The first is stretch people. Goals should push people to greatness, but not push them beyond their reach. When the goal's too easy and people think it's a slam dunk, they actually fail to start. It creates a sort of laziness. It's too easy to bother. And so they don't engage in achievement. Setting a no-brainer goal just doesn't move the organization forward and doesn't inspire anyone. And of course, there's very little satisfaction in achieving a slam dunk goal. They call it sandbagging. On the other end of that spectrum, though, is setting goals that are impossible, either because you're out of touch with what the execution realities are, or because you want to aim too high. Goals that are just impossible to realize have the effect of demoralizing the team. And after 1, 2, or 3 cycles of setting goals that are just out of reach, you start to sabotage the long-term culture and dynamic on the team. There's nothing worse than taking a group of people who can be a great success and making them feel like horrible serial failures. So, make the goal hard, make it a stretch, but don't make it a break. The next is to use language that inspires people. When you describe the goal, it's like describing the mission that you're on. You want it to tap into and create aspirations in people on your team. It's the morning cup of coffee for people, energizing them and providing the purpose and the meaning for the work. They should inspire the extraordinary. And you probably have that language or that mission in your mind, but rather than quickly dropping to the quantification of the metrics, communicate the mission and inspire with it. Some examples of what that might look like are, for example, in marketing, massive mind share for a massive product launch. Now, if the team were getting together and getting really excited about what they were going to do, and let's go out and have a massive launch, that's the kind of language and energy you want in the goal. For IT, that might be the serious but big aspiration to transform business perception of IT. Or for finance, deploy an expense system that employees and executives love. If you've ever used an expense system, you know that's an aspirational goal. The next is to define what success looks like. When will you achieve the goal? And then what is the quantified target for achievement? How do you reduce the big mission statement and aspirational statement into specifics? And then what, who, and how will you measure progress on the path to goal achievement? Now here you might want to think about balanced metrics so you get the right result. When you put a metric out and tell the team that's what they're shooting for, they will very often shoot for it. So if you put a metric that says deliver a product by a certain date, you might want to add a metric for the quality standards or the amount of bugs in the product at that time, so that you don't just deliver by the date, but you deliver the product at the quality that you want on the date that you want. So when you put both metrics out there, you provide people with a balanced view of what you're trying to achieve. Note that most goals, even the ones that appear the most subjective, can be made more objective if you try and work toward it. So some sample metrics. For that marketing goal of massive mind share, you might quantify that with metrics like we want 10,000 retweets, and we want 2,000 qualified leads. We want 12 press mentions per week for the whole quarter. Those are ways to quantify what massive mind share actually means to the team. And that helps them know whether they achieved that goal. For IT and the transformed business perception of IT, the metrics might be 80% system use in the first 90 days post-deployment. So when we roll a system out to the business community, 80% of the community uses the app we rolled out in that first quarter. Now that would drive behavior in training and user acceptance testing and feature requirements and so on. And it would be a measure of whether the business community was getting value from IT. And in the finance arena, employees and executives love the new expense system. That might be quantified as less than 10 user errors reported in the first quarter, and reimbursements average less than 7 days, and sign-offs average less than 48 hours. Those metrics would be an indication of whether employees and executives were feeling the love. You might add to those metrics milestone completion that helped you measure execution progress or monitor budget and run rate, because of course how much you spend to achieve the goal is almost always part of the equation. When you have skill building or subjective targets, you might consider things like, for example, on a goal for someone to become an expert in, or the team to develop expertise in a certain area. You might quantify that as reading or completing a certain number of learning modules in a certain period of time. And another metric for self-assessing competency at 80% of expert, and self-assess that competency every month to reinforce the intention to build skills. Whether that's for an IT team that's trying to develop new skills in a new technology domain, or for a sales team that's trying to develop skills on a new product line or a new market segment, self-assessing competency is a way to turn the goal to become expert into something a bit more measurable, imperfect, but measurable, and aligning intentions and actions to the outcomes you're trying to achieve. The next thing to keep in mind when you set goals, particularly when you get good at it, is less is more. More goals does not equal more achievement. One of the most important elements or contributions goals make to your environment is they focus attention and clarify priorities. They tell people what you want them to work on and what matters and what results they should deliver. And at the same time, they tell them what doesn't matter or what matters less, where they shouldn't spend their time. So you want to define goals and metrics for those things that are really, truly important for your organization to achieve, and then let your team rely on that as a way to organize their time. When you have annual goals, you want to break those into chunks and decompose into meaningful bites that people can progress. This makes an annual goal immediately present and something that people can work towards quickly rather than defer and ignore until 6 or 8 or 9 months later. That galvanizes execution immediately and progresses towards the goal, and of course that reduces the risk of failure that you ever achieve the goal at all. When goals focus attention and they're few and they're clear, it helps prevent people from falling into the pit of distraction, which is when they spend their time on all the wrong things and you come up short at the end of the quarter or the end of the year. Next, follow the 3-second rule. You know, when you drop a cookie on the ground and if it wasn't there 3 seconds, you can still eat it? Well, in this case, you should be able to find your cookie in 3 seconds. So people need to be able to find and access their goals as easily as their inbox. Because email and the last email in is the competition for goal achievement. It's easy as human beings to focus on responding and reacting, and even to feel good about that, until we realize we've spent a quarter responding and reacting to the unimportant and non-strategic, and we've come up short on goal. Help your team by making goals present and immediately accessible in the course of their day-to-day work. And you'll need to align actions to goals. And this is where the manager's job is hard. It takes real discipline, but this is the manager's job. Make sure that the work needed to achieve the goals is defined, it's understood, it's owned. Drive consistent execution towards the goal. Don't put off your homework to Sunday night. And do the hard job of managing and hold people accountable. About 50% of managers shy away from holding people accountable. And that's the hardest part of the job, but it's the most important part. And then last, model the behavior you seek. If you want people to stay consistently aligned to the goals, to have their actions be coordinated towards goal achievement, you'll need to do that. So you show that the goals are present, important, and consistent in your actions, and they will be in your team's action. One way to help your team is to provide them with a framework for making choices for their time. That would be, for example, a simple quad diagram where you have on the one axis how easy an action is to complete, and on the other, its importance or its impact on your annual or quarter goals. And that might be a measure in dollars or a percentage or target of goal. Where their time should go first is on those things that are both easy and high impact on achieving goals. The second place their time goes is those things that are not easy, but high impact on achieving goals. And that means giving your team permission to decide that those things that are easy but irrelevant don't need to get done. Give them a framework for thinking that through and tell them they're entitled to make the right choice with their time. Very often for overwhelmed, overworked people or more junior people, this decision framework is very hard to get to, and a lot of times they think they need to cover them all and don't have a framework for deciding what to cover first and what to let go. Last but not least, celebrate victory often. If you have an annual goal or a particularly aggressive goal, Celebrating the incremental wins can help build early momentum. And when the goal is ambitious, focusing on what's been accomplished can give people the energy and the satisfaction and the motivation to tackle what's in front of them. And of course, that satisfaction is a powerful motivator. To reduce that to a metric, studies show that 83% of people find recognition is more important than compensation. So as you celebrate those incremental victories along the path to great achievement, make sure you highlight the contributions of individual members of the team. They'll love it and bring even more energy to what you're trying to achieve. In Workboard, we've tried to make goals and metrics easier for seasoned executives and rising managers to set and share with their teams. You can align work streams and actions to goal achievement more easily, see goals across the organization, and get instant transparency to execution progress, progress towards key business goals, and identify risks earlier. Here in Workboard, I'm logged in as a marketing manager, and you can see the goals I've set for the marketing team, which includes Joan, Mary, and Susan. The goal here is to get droves of new blog readers to set the stage for a great launch, and they want to achieve that by March 31st. There are several metrics associated with achieving this goal. Success has been defined as 50,000 readers, and the team's at 31,500 now. There are a couple other metrics that are important to progress, including the number of blog posts every week and how many other sites reference it. This is, in a sense, the achievement dashboard for the marketing team and their goals. There's a second goal the team has set up as well for a series of spring events in which they want to delight and excite customers and the sales team. There's one metric defined so far, which is for planning milestones to be completed. Let's add a second metric so you can see how easy it is to quantify success for your goals. The goal is here and our achievement date, and we've said this goal is visible to anyone in our organization. The second step, the simple wizard, walks you through how to set up a metric that would measure success. So this is our first metric, the one that was already set on planning milestones. Let's add another metric. And in this case, we'll put a metric for customers rating our events. We'll measure that as a number, and we'll give the customers a scale of 1 to 5, and we want our customers to consistently rate a 4 or better. We'll look at that as a trend graph from event to event so we can see the trend of our customer ratings. The metric will come from the on-site event coordinator who will enter it at the end of an event. We can just pick that person from the team here. We'll give the job or the task to Joan to update our metrics against goal. We want to see our results weekly, but we could ask for monthly or quarterly. And then the wizard suggests who it is you may want to make this goal visible to. And in this case, we'll make it again visible to anyone on our team. The next step is to associate it with the work streams that the team is working that may be related to achieving the goal. In other words, we want to link the work and activity of team members to the outcomes we're trying to achieve here. Now, our first metric was associated with the quarter-end customer event and the February customer event, and that's also appropriate for our second metric here. So we won't make any changes, we'll just save the goal. Now we've added to the planning milestones a second metric on customer ratings. And the next measurement interval is February 27th, and Joan will get an action item with the link for her to update the results from that first event on how customers rated their experience. Because we linked the work streams that the team is working on to the events, we can also drill down into the execution itself. So there were 2 work streams, a February customer event and the quarter end event. And I can see in the quarter end event, there are 7 actions that have been delivered. 9 still in progress, and 1 that's at risk. So I can drill directly down into the detail to see which action is at risk that may be in the way of our achieving our goal. And here I see all of the work that everyone on the team is doing to support and execute these event series. And of course, I see the red flag standing out here that the guest list hasn't been approved. I can add comments, go further into the detail, but this double click into the execution makes it very easy for managers and leaders to see where the team needs your help and where roadblocks may need to be removed so you can get to goal. With Workboard, goals, the priorities for the team week over week, even individual to-do lists are all aligned. Reporting progress is automated, so nobody has to do a progress report, but everybody gets visibility. And cool badges and trophies make it very easy to give real and frequent feedback on the work people are doing. So, as takeaways, the leader's checklist for setting and achieving great goals. First, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Don't let the fact that you're not an expert goal setter get in the way of starting to set goals. You'll learn through trial and error. In fact, experts are experts because they failed and learned from it. Second, when you set the goals, make sure you communicate them consistently and you weave them into the work the team is doing. Think 3-second rule. Make sure everyone can find the cookie. And then, probably through trial and error, define balanced metrics so you really get the results that you're trying to achieve and you have fewer unintended consequences. Then ensure that the actions needed to achieve the goals are clear, owned, and done. As a manager, you'll need to prioritize ruthlessly and relentlessly. It's the hardest part of the job, most important part of the job. It's an art form. Then stay tuned into the metrics and actions week over week and month over month. This is how you model the behavior that you want the team to have. If the metrics matter to you, if the mission matters to you, if they can hear that in each meeting and each interaction, if they see that in your choices and priorities, they'll follow that. So lead the way through your actions. With that, we'll close the webinar. I hope you found it valuable and that it helps you lead the way to great achievement.